XS Wireless Digital is the perfect wireless audio solution for content creators and filmmakers. Thanks to a 2.4 GHz transmission, XS Wireless Digital is a truly plug-and-play system that allows you to upgrade your in-camera audio with one-button operation. With a variety of configurations to choose from, this entry point into the world of wireless will improve your workflow and will expand the possibilities of how you capture audio for your video. For more information, visit sennheiser.com/xswd.
The new Super 35 sensor that Canon have introduced with the C300 Mark III is quite a big step up from other S35 sensors that they have created before. From the body and the flexibility that gives us in terms of the expansion packs and the interchangeable mount, to the sensor with its increased dynamic range for tackling scenes that possibly we couldn't have tackled or captured faithfully before, I can get more out of this camera. My money goes further. It's as simple as that from a business standpoint. From a creative point of view, it's unquestionably unlocking more creative avenues for us as filmmakers.
Hello everyone, welcome to ProAV Live. Thank you very much for joining us today so that we can talk about the new BlackMagic Cinema Camera 6K Pro, but the Pocket line of cinema cameras as a whole. I'm joined today by Chris from BlackMagic. Thank you very much for joining us. Chris, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you, Carl. Thank you very much for having us and lending this platform for us today to go live.
Yeah, no problem at all. So the basic structure of this for everyone watching, basically what we're going to do here is Chris does have the official BlackMagic presentation, which he's going to run you through, give you an overview of the cameras. We're going to save questions today until the end. So leave any questions that you've got in the YouTube chat as we're there. Hello everyone for joining. Hello Topic Ruben saying nice to be here. Thank you very much for joining. So leave any questions that you have in the YouTube chat or on Facebook as we go, and I will save them until the end once Chris is done going over the main features, and we'll have a bit of a Q&A session at the end. But yeah, do you want to start by kicking us off, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Carl. Thank you very much. And yeah, it's great to have you all here today. I hope everyone's coping all right in the current situation. So today we are obviously, like Carl says, we're going to look at the Pocket camera family range, also drilling into the new release of the 6K Pro. To introduce myself, as Carl mentioned, I am Chris Javin, and I am part of the technical sales specialist team here at BlackMagic Design EMEA. Today I'm really excited to bring you a brand new webinar focusing on the recently announced BlackMagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K Pro. This camera expands upon the foundations of the incredibly successful Pocket Cinema camera family, taking many of the existing technical features and boasting some new additions that are more commonly found on our larger cameras to provide you with a wealth of versatile options. So just to discuss what we're going to go through today, firstly, we are going to have a quick look at the existing Pocket family's features, the applications and notable differences between the cameras in the range, and how the existing cameras have influenced the design of the newly released 6K Pro. We'll then go on and discuss some of the innovative features and ergonomic additions that you'll find in the 6K Pro. And we will then move on to the core shared technology that can be seen throughout the range. When designing all of our cameras, this is the type of thing that we look at is how we can, use that shared technology and how we can unite the whole BlackMagic camera family. We'll then move on to look at which camera is right for you. We'll look at the standout features of each of the cameras in the range and discuss the use cases of those cameras. And then just before we finish up on the Q&A, we will finally focus on different usage scenarios and target markets that the Pocket family works within. So first of all, we're going to introduce by talking about the existing 4K and 6K and how this has impacted the design of the 6K Pro. So the 4K and the 6K Pocket Cinema cameras were developed on the foundation of the hugely popular and successful original Pocket Cinema camera HD. And the main technological push behind the Pocket 4K camera was basically came from the need for the Pocket camera family to shoot internal 4K resolution. Both cameras were based around the same accessible design, having the advantage of small and lightweight 750 grams polycarbonate bodies, yet still producing crisp BlackMagic cinema quality imagery in a market that had a real need for this type of camera and this form factor. The entire Pocket family offer similar core technology with an easy to use menu system, 13 stops of dynamic range with dual native ISO, internal B-roll recording and unique sensor technology. Ideal for creatives needing a range of options whilst retaining critical features that you've come to expect from our cameras. The Pocket 4K has the benefit of compact, lightweight lenses, keeping the overall package small due to its native 4K 4/3 sensor size and micro 4/3 lens mount. The 6K Super 35mm sensor allows for better depth of field control, more prominent bokeh, and the ability to scale or reframe from that 6K resolution. With that new sensor comes a native EF mount, enabling a wide range of superb EF glass that is obviously very accessible and hopefully helping to support our BlackMagic customers who have existing EF glass in their stock. So to move on, we'll look at the two different sensor formats within the 4K and the 6K. Here you can clearly see how that sensor size has dictated the type of lens mount and ultimately the choice of lens that you get with the Pocket 4K and the 6K. And this is obviously the major difference between them being the lens mount and the sensor. The 4K is built around the smaller, tried and tested full 4/3 format with a micro 4/3 lens mount and a full resolution of 4096 2:160, so DCI 4K. The Pocket Cinema Camera 6K, on the other hand, changes this for the larger Super 35mm native 6K sensor with a built-in EF standard mount and a max resolution of 6144 by 3456. So creatively and aesthetically, the combination of EF lenses and that Super 35mm format affects the image in terms of a more prominent and shallower depth of field with amplified bokeh due to the larger sensor. This is often considered more cinematic and desirable for many customers. The Super 35mm sensor and EF lens of the 6K really unleashes endless possibilities for cinematic coverage and images due to the vast array of high quality glass available. However, the choice between the camera really comes down to your own preference, your lenses, your production and your aim. The Pocket 4K has a fantastic user base of creatives utilising that micro four thirds mount for lighter weight lenses, keeping the overall package nice and small. Some productions such as run and gun or documentaries also prefer the 4K for that deeper depth of field that's obviously gained from that smaller 4/3 sensor, making it easier to keep subjects in focus and reducing blurred subjects. So obviously when you're following action and it can be harder to keep critical focus, sometimes that deeper depth of field can be a real benefit. So obviously we've just been through the kind of core stuff of the 4K and the 6K. So now we want to introduce the 6K Pro and explain its core ergonomic additions. So in addition to the successful 4K and 6K, which is still available, we now have the new Pocket Cinema Camera 6K Pro, which has added some heavily requested ergonomic additions to improve both functionality and operability. The new 6K Pro maintains the key features of the popular and successful Pocket 6K. Despite this being a new camera, we've retained the same core technology, only updating and improving what is already an incredible camera. You can still expect the same 35mm sensor with dual ISO and 13 stops of dynamic range, high frame rates, native 6K recording, internal RAW and BlackMagic OS. What we have done is increase the versatility and operability and overall ease of use of the camera through additional features, both helping the creator and the product to stand apart, yet still fitting in with the rest of the Pocket Cinema camera lineup. So to dig down deeper into some of these new additions, one of the first ones that has been a real biggie has been the introduction of new internal motorized NDs. Due to a large number of customer requests who wanted to avoid having to rig their compact pocket cameras with large matte boxes and external filters, which can obviously hinder the operation in certain shooting scenarios, what this allows for is obviously internal NDs to obviously get away from that external rigging, keeping that form factor down, which is obviously why you want to be starting to look at something like the pocket camera, is due to that small form factor. So the more that we can do internally without external rigging, we feel to be a real benefit for the customer in this camera range. The NDs operate via a new slide system with the controls positioned on the top rear of the camera and are used with the ND plus and minus buttons, which you will actually see on a slide later, just looking at a different part of the camera. And this ranges from clear to 2 to 4 and 6 stops. The 6 stops is actually made up of the 4 and the 2 layered up on top of each other. Creatively, the NDs feature infrared glass and are specifically color balanced to match our sensor, allowing the creator to use the NDs without any worry of aesthetic changes to their production. You have the option to alter your depth of field whilst maintaining an acceptable amount of light without the hassle of adding additional accessories, which is the main reason for utilizing NDs. A very short but sweet note here, just to mention that there is an addition of an extra high quality and reliable mini XLR port on the 6K Pro. Whereas on the 4K and the 6K you only have one of these mini XLR ports, we now have the option of 2 on the side of the camera, with the rubber caps covering all of the IO ports for additional protection. These can also be detached whenever required, obviously to get easy access when on shoot. Our mini XLRs are a professional connection, yet perfectly fit the size of the camera and maintain the same Pro preamps as the previous models. These analog mini XLRs are switchable between mic with phantom power and line level up to plus 14 dBu. Combine this with the one 3.5mm stereo input, which can be used for timecode, an integrated stereo microphone and a built-in mono speaker. really gives you a range of possibilities to capture and playback audio, making this iteration of the pocket camera ideal for documentary or fast-paced dialogue scenes. We also have a new 5-inch ultra bright HDR touchscreen monitor. This has an intuitive user interface, easy to touch sensitivity, and an increased brightness of 1500 nits, whereas going from the 6K 700 nit is quite the upgrade. This makes it an ideal companion for outdoor use with bright sunlight or in tricky lighting situations. You can control frame rates, shutter angle, ISO and white balance all from the home screen, making it an efficient tool whilst on set, with the added bonus of true HDR colour fidelity and reproduction. I think, you know, the way we utilise the screens on the back of our cameras with the ease of use with the menu systems, I think has been a real big benefit of this camera with the 4K and the 6K. I think the upgrade now to 1500 nits of the screen just makes it so much more usable, without having to look at trying to externally rig, you know, third-party sun hoods or things like that over that LCD. Again, just thinking of those customers and trying to keep that form factor down and simplify it. Another great addition with this LCD is that it is now connected to an articulating 135-degree tilt function mount. It's giving you 90 degrees upwards and a 45-degree angle downwards. In this feature, you can see the capabilities for allowing that 6K Pro to be operated in more difficult positions, providing the shooter with a range of new camera angles and possibilities. Again, this reinforces our aim of boosting functionality and operability to the end user without having to look at external rigging, third-party manufacturers stuff to get on the camera to make it work to you know how you need it to. So hopefully this is really going to help with that high-end 1500 nits for the brightness, the articulating mount to help obviously with high angle, low angle shooting, and also to help with maybe, you know, helping to get away from some of that sunlight hitting the screen in very high bright situations. Another great addition when we talk about obviously high bright conditions and, you know, critically focusing, exposing cameras, we now have an optional Pocket Camera Pro EVF that works with the 6K Pro and the 6K Pro alone. It's an optional accessory, so it does not come with the camera, but it has an operable design which was founded on a combination of customer feedback and also through our well-received 1080p OLED Ursa EVF. Customers have loved the ability to focus more intently through an EVF, removing any additional light that may affect the image seen on screen, while simultaneously allowing more critical focus control over the scene at hand. You can see how adaptable the EVF is for close handheld work or when shooting a run and gun style. So this is a real benefit, I think, to again just thinking about usability and ergonomics of the camera. The camera ships with a cover over this port, and basically it is very simple to remove that cover and get the EVF in. So I mentioned before there you can see the ND filters, the plus and minus buttons on the top rear of the camera. But as you can see, the detachable EVF mounts directly onto the top of the body, like I just mentioned. It boasts a 1280 by 960 resolution, a plus and minus 4 diopter range, and uses a proprietary connector on the top of the camera which can be tightened or released via a thumb screw. This helps remove the issue of tools on set and makes for a seamless transition from screen to EVF. Other exciting features include a digital focus guide, which can be pulled up from the menu system. So in the 6K Pro, there is an additional menu system for the EVF, and obviously that digital focus guide, basically bringing that up gives you really critical focus down that EVF to set that EVF up and make sure that obviously it's seeing everything that the camera's seeing in really good detail. It comes with a built-in eye-cup proximity detector, similar to the Ursa EVF, which switches off the display screen when not in use to save on power consumption. All of the power and data of this new EVF is via the proprietary high-density pin connector. And just another short but sweet one, basically with that EVF, it does ship with different silicon eye cups, so it provided with the EVF. As it ships, you get an included left and right eye option, and also a slightly extended eye cup if you need a little bit more depth within that. So it actually ships with one on the EVF and then those 3 extras that you can see in the slide there. With the new addition of the optional pocket camera battery Pro Grip, you have a larger 2-cell capacity now, allowing for approximately 1 hour of recording per battery, depending on your camera settings. This is an improvement over the 4K and 6K and been something that a lot of customers have got onto us about. So hopefully, again, another addition that really shows that we are listening to customer feedback and trying to improve our cameras in a usability environment. The new battery Pro Grip will use 2 MPF 570 batteries, and this is obviously different to the original. So the 6K battery Pro Grip works with the 6K Pro and will not work with the 4 or 6K. There is no need to remove the internal battery now with this battery grip. Instead, it connects via pins on the base of the camera. As the internal battery can now be left in, you can now have 3 fully charged batteries available all at once. There is also some clever stuff going on in the camera to ensure that the batteries are drained in the sled of the battery grip before the internal battery in the camera grip is drained. This means that obviously it creates hot swappability with those batteries in the grip, leaving obviously the internal one in the hand grip of the camera to be relied upon to obviously keep shooting going while those new batteries are swapped back in, and then again that technology overrides again and will start to drain those batteries in the grip. So this is perfect for customers wishing to shoot for longer periods of time. And if you're out in the field with limited power supplies, for example, this could be a real benefit. Here you can see how that grip screws in seamlessly into the bottom of the camera body. It also features the same style non-slip hand grips and is designed to perfectly match the polycarbonate of the camera body, with the ability to charge the batteries in the grip via the camera's 12-volt DC power connection should you wish to do so. Okay, so now we'll move on to look at the shared technology between our cameras and look at how nothing is compromised within this range. All of our cameras are based on the same design and shared technology, aiming for operability, simplicity, regardless of what camera you are shooting with. What makes this the best camera range is best described by what lives inside our cameras. We saw a position in the market for an accessible, small form factor camera that produces amazing imagery. So we've shown you the products. Now let's see the core of the range. So BlackMagic OS, speed and efficiency is integral to the operation of our products. The BlackMagic OS is simple and intuitive to use, with the ability to update firmware in the field and provide more functionality. Our bright full HD touchscreens are easy to frame, focus and shoot accurately with. There is no need for menus and rotary dials within the camera or on the camera, with purely fast logical access to show you only what is needed on screen, whether you want to change the resolution, frame rate, ISO or view our library of LUTs and presets. The main menu allows us to set up the camera however we want to, access metadata, media or battery levels. You can swipe or tap to add or remove settings based on other choices made, such as frame rates relating to recording formats. Finally, it's worth me mentioning that you can also control the camera remotely via Bluetooth on either an iPad or an iPhone through the designated BlackMagic app. I think this is a big one for us. I think, again, just trying to hail back to that idea of ease of use, operability. We've really tried to streamline that menu system. And again, because it's now something that we are using in the range, it hopefully means, you know, seamless movement between our cameras, making it very easy for the user to pick up and get going with. These are cinema cameras from the ground up. So everything in that menu is designed for something that is going to work with that cinema element. If it's, you know, this isn't a mirrorless or a DSLR camera that is more photographic based, that's being bent towards video, that again means that those menu systems have to be more complex and have more options. We feel this is a really intuitive way of working, and hopefully you agree. Another great feature of the camera is the ability to record via that USB-C connection. Not only does every Blackmagic camera offer non-proprietary CFast and SD media, we also offer USB-C recording. The USB-C ports enable you to record directly to external USB-C drives or flash drives, utilizing a more cost-effective media solution with greater size capacities than smaller media cards. This is vital when shooting corporate or documentary footage, which can require long periods of time shooting. An added benefit of the USB-C recording is that it also speeds up the post-production process, as you can edit or even grade from those same drives that you've been recording onto by simply unplugging from the camera and moving it to a workstation to begin your edit, again making that very efficient and seamless in the switchover. Power is also supported via USB-C, enabling you to charge batteries in the camera. Just ensure the camera is turned off before doing this, as you can't run the camera live simultaneously like you can when powering through the 12-volt DC connection. So a key example of our technical development is in our dual ISO sensors. This is only available in the Pocket family, and it was developed as customers in this market space were looking to shoot in lower available light at higher resolutions. We built our own proprietary sensors beginning in 2015 with the Ursa 4.6K, and what we learnt we have been improving upon ever since. We combat the low light through our dual native ISO up to 25,600 for HDR images and incredible low light performance. With native low gain and high gain at 400 and 3200 ISO respectively. As a result, you have the flexibility and adaptability of choosing your desired ISO while still retaining integral dynamic range sensitivity and latitude. Which brings us really nicely on to, what is it that we can get all this amazing information into and encode to for the best possible image. And that would be our own internal proprietary format, Blackmagic RAW. This integrates our technology between camera and post-production, optimizing color fidelity throughout the chain. It's first and foremost designed for preserving and protecting dynamic range and color precision image information without discarding color and image detail, which results in a substandard clip. B-RAW processes only the sensor data and relies on post-production to debayer and create the video information. Secondly, efficiency in recording is key. Compared to other RAW formats, which are often a bucket of pixels that demand a lot of post-processing, we work hand in hand with our sensor technology, leveraging the processing power in the camera to help reduce file sizes and deliver that same bit depth, dynamic range and control as RAW, with information encoded and saved in metadata. Finally, we have the ability to complete the chain by finishing and working with DaVinci Resolve in post-production, the world's most used and well-renowned grading software, unified by our newly released Generation 5 Color Science. I think this really shows again the ethos behind Blackmagic, in the sense of when looking at our different product pools, we really like to create a pipeline that end users can work end-to-end Blackmagic. What that gives us is it gives us that control, so we can be looking at the way we design cameras for the way it can then be used in post. We then design how we work with upgrades in post to work with our cameras. So I really believe creating that ecosystem for end-to-end Blackmagic delivery really helps, because it allows us to have so much more control about what we can do and the way we can progress as well. I mean, it's a big thing recently that can be seen within the Pocket camera family range with the update of that HDMI use with use with our A10 minis and that cross communication that we've been able to unlock within that HDMI. Really, that's something that I really believe in, and I think we're doing again, creating these pipelines.
Hello everyone, apologies for the technical issues. If you're joining us for the first time, yes, this is a new stream, a new link, but it is the second half of the stream. We were halfway through when our entire system here in the streaming room completely ground to a halt for some reason, which we will investigate afterwards, but completely our end. So severe apologies for that. I was in the middle of, we were in the middle of a fantastic presentation from Chris from BlackMagic. Welcome back, Chris. I'm sorry about these technical issues.
That's all right. That's the world we live in, isn't it? Unfortunately.
How long were you going talking to yourself before I managed to call you and let you know that we'd died?
Oh, I was straight on it, mate. Yeah, I was. I realised straight away and just stopped talking. Didn't carry on for at
Of
least
course.
those 2 minutes until my
course
phone
not.
went and thought, why is Carl ringing me?
That would be
during
embarrassing.
the stream.
Right.
No, absolutely, I carried on. Pure professional, mate. You know.
So let's get back to where we started. We've got a couple of questions going. Welcome back to part 2, Video Editor Bloke and Guy Cassidy saying, are we going to restart or pick up where the previous stream broke? We will just pick up. The previous one is still there. So if anyone joining us for the first time, just go back and watch that previous one if you like. Or we're going to pick up. We were halfway through talking about the technology which you use throughout your entire lineup of cameras, weren't we? And then we will shortly get to some Q&As. And I've saved all of your questions from the first stream ready to ask Chris when we get to the Q&A session. So yeah, let's pass back to you, and sorry very much once again for the interruption.
Yeah, so I think it was Gen 5 Colour Science that we were up to, so I will just play back in from here. I will just go back up from the top, so I'll just go back through Gen 5 Colour Science. Apologies if it was that I had started to go through this, but let's go. So our new 6K Pro was built around the Generation 5 Colour Science, which will also be included in the 4K and 6K. It was developed with DaVinci Resolve technology and IP processing within the camera, again hailing back to that control that we've got through that pipeline by using post software and cameras that we manufacture. We've got that control. Our colour science underpins our sensor performance, reproducing extremely accurate skin tones, image clarity, and beautiful lifelike colours like never before. Through our ever-evolving development, we fine-tuned our colour science to allow creators to match both archive and current footage to perfection. Colour fidelity and colour reproduction are the most important qualities of an image, creating that richness. Building upon the popular Gen 4 colour science, Gen 5 is a fantastic addition as it can easily be manipulated and worked with within DaVinci Resolve to produce vivid colours and accurate representations of what the camera is capturing. We feel you cannot compromise on any of our unifying technology within our cameras, the ease of use and the operability of the BlackMagic OS, the available light possibilities down to having that dual ISO sensor, the efficiency and image preservation of the BlackMagic RAW, and to round it off, the colour fidelity and reproduction from our new Generation 5 colour science, giving a really well-rounded package. These 4 areas encapsulate what you need in a camera to create those cinematic images, something which is shared throughout our core technology. So moving on, what we're going to do now is just, I think it's a really good time after being through the 4K and the 6K and talking about the new additions of the 6K Pro and the core technology that rides within it. We'll now look at the main differences when looking at standout features, and hopefully this will help to just drill down as to which of these cameras would be best for you if it is that you're looking at investing within this kind of small form factor. So let's have a look in a bit more detail. So the Pocket Cinema Camera 4K, you can see the diagram on the slide is showing 6 areas that we feel you would consider as a camera operator when choosing your desired camera. It's not exhaustive, but typically you would look at frame rates, dynamic range, ND filters, resolution, sensor size, and rolling shutter. First and foremost, the Pocket 4K strength really lies in its faster rolling shutter readouts of approximately 16 milliseconds, resulting in a more sensitive sensor and better handling of available light situations. Again, using the 4K as that bottom end, you've got the cheaper lenses available, the smaller lightweight lenses available through that Micro Four Thirds mount. You've also got a faster readout on the rolling shutter, which means, again, if you haven't got money to be investing in additional light sources and you need to make the most of what you have available, this is where the 4K sits perfectly. This combined with our dual ISO helps combat the issue whilst retaining all that latitude that these cameras can obviously acquire. We also have the smaller 4K 4/3 sensor. The smaller size and resolution are often better suited for documentaries and ENG shooters, as they prefer that deeper depth of field and also the wide range of lightweight and small Micro Four Thirds lenses that the sensor brings. Finally, we have the Pocket 4K's frame rates of up to 60 in native 4K or 120 in HD window to create cinematic slow motion effects within a compact form factor camera. Type of use cases. So as mentioned previously, we've seen our Pocket Cinema Camera 4K used for a wide variety of applications. Where we tend to see the 4K is predominantly in event videography, where the demand nowadays is for a more cinematic approach. And we've got a really good user case story, a couple of slides down the line, that really goes into that and shows off someone who's doing, exactly that in the industry. Online content creators also use it for YouTube content due to its ability to work with our ATEM streaming products, or independent film productions who prefer the compactness and versatility of the camera compared to a DSLR or mirrorless camera. Finally, we work very closely with film schools and universities, acting as an educational camera for students. The ease of use and accessibility of the camera really makes it an obvious choice for creatives that are starting out in the industry. Moving swiftly on to the Pocket 6K, you can already see the change in the diagram and what it's highlighted, but the key change obviously lies in the resolution, with the higher native 6K resolution in the Pocket 6K. The benefits include the ability to downsample to produce cleaner, sharper images in 4K or a 2K deliverable. Reframing, rescaling, stabilization in post-production, creating multiple shots in one frame, and ultimately to ensure you've got future-proof work that if you ever needed to go back to and remaster, you've got a really high resolution archive there. Pair the 6K with the larger Super 35mm sensor and you get the incredible resolution in a compact form factor, with access to a wide variety of cinematic EF lenses due to the native EF mount. This, as we previously mentioned, allows for that shallower depth of field and more notable bokeh, which is something that a lot of people drive for when trying to create something cinematic. There is also the slight change in frame rates, with 60 frames now available in that native 6K resolution. So the Pocket 6K has been used fundamentally by creatives desiring cinematic aesthetics. Users include music video creators who often move on to larger cinematic TV dramas and feature film productions. Large-scale advertising commercial productions, including fashion or corporate events, utilize the cameras, often using many in unison for perfect image matching in post-production. We also have seen a high amount of independent feature films that use the 6K due to the increased resolution and Super 35mm sensor. Finally, we have the newly released 6K Pro. Nothing has changed from the 6K sensor or core technological capabilities of the camera. The difference here is the inclusion of the internal motorized NDs. Putting the other additions of the 6K Pro aside just for a moment, the NDs help the 6K Pro sit nicely in between the 6K and the G2. As we've already explained, it acts as an alternate solution now to the BlackMagic Cinema Camera 6K by hosting some additional ergonomic features that can help it to complement larger camera systems. The benefit of internal motorized NDs was to allow the creator to shoot in wide apertures without overexposing, with the benefits of that shallower depth of field and selective focus effects while under constrained lighting conditions, and without having to work with large external rigs, which again should make efficiency on shoot a lot quicker. The other additional 6K Pro upgrades, such as the new HDR screen, the battery grip, the EVF, are all based on functionality and operability. The internal NDs are the perfect complement to that 6K sensor, all working together to create the best camera possible for the user. Although the Pocket 6K Pro has only recently been released, we really do think that with the new features, we see this camera sitting in a wide variety of markets. The Pocket family has always been used as a handheld device or with gimbals, including run and gun documentary filmmakers, location scouts, or pickups on larger films. Specialist productions such as VFX works, crash cams, stunts, non-intrusive situations are also ideal for that small form factor that this camera offers. And again, that high image quality, allowing for, again, matching with larger camera systems and making this camera work really well in that kind of environment. Using that color science that we talked about, it becomes quite easy now to work with those larger camera systems and match the colors and color science between them. So yeah, when working on those more high-end Hollywood features or complementing bigger productions, this camera can sit in really well to do that. So here's just a quick comparison. I'm not going to touch on that. That's just what we've talked about, but you can see again just the kind of standout features and where the cameras sit in relation to that. Okay, some really interesting customer use cases now. So we want to highlight a few customer stories who've chosen Blackmagic for their creative work with complete end-to-end workflow. So again, touching on what I talked about before, what we strive for here at Blackmagic, from sensor to codec through to post-production. We'll start by looking at cinematographer Martin Kavinsky and his wedding production company, Kako Films. Martin is an award-winning wedding videographer based in the Czech Republic, creating high-end cinematic wedding films all over the world, primarily on the Pocket 4K, and using our entire workflow extensively and exclusively. Martin films in a documentary style to interrupt as little as possible and truly capture the emotional moments of such a special occasion that, again, as we all know, can never be recreated. And with that small, compact size of the 4K, it's ideal for this kind of work. He emphasises his need for superb colour grading and high image quality with a filmic look throughout his pipeline. Combine this with a requirement for lots of storage to film an entire wedding, he chooses to film in B-RAW for reduced file sizes whilst maintaining that colour fidelity and dynamic range. The entirety of his projects are edited and grading using DaVinci Resolve for a complete end-to-end Blackmagic design workflow. Another exciting story centres around a social media campaign for the Mercedes AMG A-Class, which was shot by DP Matteo Bertolli with the Pocket Cinema Camera 6K in Blackmagic RAW. The entire project, shot on location in Frankfurt, Germany, involved tracking and lighting a moving car through the streets and traffic. Matteo utilised the native 6K resolution and dual ISO against minimal existing streetlights to help create the drama of the nighttime driving shots, combined with a fluid contemporary dancer in some studio scenes. Matteo has used the Pocket Cinema camera for a long time, shooting B-RAW at 5:1 and 3:1 compression rates in 6K at 48 frames and 24 frames per second, benefiting from the power of RAW in such small and efficient file sizes. It was edited and graded completely with DaVinci Resolve Studio, providing end-to-end workflow consistency throughout the pipeline. A UK-based commercial agency, Still Moving Media, recently completed a project promoting the launch of a new Aston Martin Concorde edition with British Airways, celebrating the 50th anniversary of the iconic Concorde's first flight. Still Moving Media used the Pocket Camera 4K to deliver their client's vision of tracking and chasing an Aston Martin on a closed airfield. It was chosen for its compact design and lightness when rigging cameras directly to a vehicle, while still providing internal RAW recording and the ability to use EF lenses through a lens adapter for superior image quality. Still Moving Media were able to record to CFast in RAW via SDI direct to our own Blackmagic design video assist held by the first AD in the car. The performance and colour science of the camera provided incredible creative options in post-production, with the project being fully edited and graded again in DaVinci Resolve. And to finish on, a fairly high-profile case to end, which involves the DOP John Brawley using a combination of our Ursa Mini Pro 4.6K G2 and Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. The Great is a 2020 satirical costume drama streaming on Hulu, starring Ellie Fanning and Nicholas Hoult. Whilst John shot the majority of the 8-camera footage with an Arri Alexa SXT, he often used the G2 and the Pocket Cinema Camera 4K at the same time, shooting in Blackmagic RAW. As John mentioned, Blackmagic's range of cameras gave me the most flexibility in choice when approaching a shot. I can use any camera and know that I'll get great shots. An example would be when hero close-ups of Ellie Fanning was shot using the Pocket Cinema camera in handheld mode. This is a shot that just couldn't have been achieved with a larger, bigger camera system. The images from the Arri and Blackmagic cameras were seamlessly matched in post-production, as he felt the looks, colours and dynamic range felt quite similar, using LUTs made in pre-production, again utilising DaVinci Resolve. So in summary, we've explored the key innovative developments of our new Pocket Cinema Camera 6K Pro and where it sits within the Pocket family now. We've also seen how those new ergonomic additions enhance your production, allowing for more creativity and operability when filming. We also took a look at where we see the 6K Pro fitting into the market, and I've given you some Pocket family use cases. However, I'm sure you've got a ton of questions that you'd like to ask, so let's move on into the Q&A. And if you do have any additional questions after the webinar, then please do reach out to us at presales-emea@blackmagicdesign.com. Again, many thanks for joining me and taking the time today. I hope you found this webinar useful and insightful.
Lovely stuff.
And we can move on to Q&A.
Thank you so much for that, Chris. I think that was a fantastic presentation. We've got a bunch of questions right from the very beginning, which let's shoot through these quick fire style. So thank you for everyone who asked questions, and I'm going to try and rush through as many of them as we can and as we've got time for. So the first one from John Mika, right at the very beginning, before the stream even started, he was asking what types of lenses should I be buying for the BlackMagic 6K Pro, and what sort of price are they? Are there any particular lenses that you really enjoy using, Chris?
It's a tough one. I am very much primes, I really feel, lens choice has to come down to what it is you're shooting, if it is going to be run and gun documentary, live event stuff, then you're going to be looking down the zoom lenses, aren't you? Let's be honest. Exactly. If it's cinematic, drama, fiction, I'd absolutely be going for primes. For me, primes really help you to understand lens aesthetic and what those different focal lengths give you, not only in reach of the lens, but also the actual aesthetic that lens can bring. So for me, it has to be down to what it is that you're shooting.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, right here we've got some physically in front of me. So I've got these both with Canon zoom, so the 24-70 and the 24-105, both very common, sort of all-purpose but good quality zooms. I'm just going to bring up a few good options on our website. Best speed. Oh.
I mean, the great thing with EF mount is that there are tons of options out there.
Absolutely.
So really, you're very.
I mean, the Pocket 6Ks really excel when you get them with a manual cinema prime, like you said, because primes are just so good. These DZO ones are one that are very much on my watch list right now. These are EF primes at a really affordable price, only just over £1,000 ex-VAT each, and there's a whole range of them, all T2.1 pretty much, apart from the extreme ends either side. These look very, very interesting. The ones that, there's the classic ranges that we sell quite a lot of for these cameras, like the Samyang Zines, very, very popular cinema choices, an affordable range. And then there's the Sigma cinema.
I have to say, I'm a big fan of the Sigmas.
The Sigmas have got a lovely look to them, really sort of warm, almost classic look to them. This is a slightly odd choice. This is their full frame zoom, but this sort of lens. They've also got all their art primes if you can't stretch to cinema ones. So there's loads of good options for lenses. John, if you're still watching, just get in touch with our sales team and we can help you argue the pros and cons of each type. So Jordan Wright has said, any word on the blue tint monitor issue? We were wondering if this would come up. It's something me and Chris were chatting about a little bit beforehand.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have spoken with the team, and we are aware of the issue. And it is the nature, unfortunately, of LCD screens that they do not always offer consistent colour, and sometimes do have a bias towards one particular colour. This can be more apparent when switching between different models of LCD screen. It is an issue we're aware of. We are addressing it currently, and this issue will hopefully be addressed in a software update in due course. If for any reason you are having a lot of bugbears with it, please do get in touch with us, and we'll do our best to get you going.
And with us, we've already had quite a few customers call up about it, and our actual demo unit here, this one I'm holding, does have it. Anyone's interested at home. If anyone hasn't come across this, all this is that the LCD just looks a little bit cooler than it should. So it's a bit more, it's called a blue tint. Really, the white balance of the LCD is slightly wrong and the white point is slightly wrong, and it just looks slightly cooler than it should do. And that's particularly noticeable when you've got the EVF, which looks exactly as it should. So as long as you're white balancing properly with an actual auto white balance off of a grey card and not just eyeballing it off of the LCD screen, you should be fine. And hopefully it will be fixed very soon in a firmware update from you guys.
Yeah, and again, just to be clear, that we've found that isn't on every camera.
Sure.
It is only certain ones that we've heard back from. So
It's probably
it will.
manufacturing batches, I'd imagine, isn't it?
I'd very much imagine so, yeah. But product development are on it, and yeah, we are working towards a resolution as quick as we can.
Cool.
So, yeah, keep an eye out.
So Millennial is asking, how's the autofocus? The autofocus is very rudimentary, I think, as somebody who isn't working from Blackmagic, I can say. It's effectively a one push autofocus based on a contrast based autofocus system. So it works by having a little box. You put the box over what you want. You can move it anywhere, which is quite nice, but then it will just do a little bit of hunting and then find something. So it's not quick, it's not continuous, but it does seem pretty accurate. I mean, how many people do you find actually using that autofocus, Chris?
I'll be honest, it's not something I get asked a lot about on this camera. Purely because this is a cinema camera that's developed from the ground up for cinema video use. For me, there are a lot of cameras out there that will do continuous autofocus. I don't think you'll get the same style of cinema quality imagery out of those cameras. So really, for me, this is a camera that sits in that cinema environment where you do manually focus stuff. Again, you have focus pullers, you have different people around the camera that look after those separated roles. And that's where I see it for me personally. That's kind of where I see it.
Okay, so we've had a question on the actual EVF for the Pro, saying has Blackmagic got any plans for using the EVF away from the top of the camera? So the EVF, for those of you who haven't seen one in person, connects with these pins on the bottom, and the new 6K Pro has got firstly the right sized slot on the top here, but it's also got the actual pin connection there. I guess what they're meaning is something I've actually spoken about in a couple of videos and I've seen lots of people talk about online is it possible to create a cable that goes from the top there just to somewhere else on the body so that you can use an EVF mount or something like that and have it mounted to one side, a bit like that. Do you reckon that's something that would ever be possible?
It's something that I have actually heard talked about. It's not something that's been manufactured yet or that will be manufactured from us at the moment. But sure. I have heard talks about it. So I do think there is the potential to adapt it like that.
At the very least, that might mean the engineers will at least look into it to see whether it's something that is possible to do, which would be very exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously we do get a lot of third-party manufacturers looking at our stuff, especially cable manufacturers that again,
that's the other possibility. Definitely. I mean, there's loads of fantastic cable manufacturers that could potentially.
Because also you've got to think about how it will rig as well in that stage.
Oh,
because,
it needs to be on something quite sturdy.
Yeah, and again, there's no attachments on it currently that would allow it to connect. You can't mount it on a standard screw thread or anything like that. So again, there is a little bit of thought that will need to go in there, but yeah, I can see the potential definitely.
Yep. Having a few questions about availability and when the next batch is availability. I'll show you on our website, but we actually have stock right now. So ProAV has a bunch in stock. We placed a very large order when they first came out, so we have still got some of that available for customers. So if you're sitting there waiting for a camera that hasn't arrived yet, I mean, from us, we shouldn't have any customers sitting there waiting for a customer because we have them in stock. But if you're sitting there waiting from someone else or you're just on the fence about buying, get in touch with us because we can get them out to you pretty much next day now until that stock runs out. But hopefully it won't be long after that until the next batch as well. Okay, so Vid3 North is saying, would Blackmagic consider a slightly upgraded version of the 4K? I guess essentially a 4K Pro version of the 6K Pro. New brighter screen, adding the port for the new viewfinder, and maybe a processing upgrade for power might not cost too much. So yeah, basically he's suggesting a 4K Pro version, presumably. Well, I mean, you won't be able to comment on anything that's coming new, so.
Yeah, I mean, I can't comment on development and what's coming, but it's certainly a great point. And I think with those additions of the Pro, and just that the extra usability that they give, I think there could be, it could certainly add a lot to the 4K. But nothing that I know of or and can comment on. But keep your eyes peeled.
We've got another question on form factor from Alimox, saying, why with its bigger body, why not explore a form factor with either better ergonomics or better balance? The DSLR look that these are inspired by seems to be more from principle than actual practicality. Any thoughts on the design of them? I mean, you've clearly gone for this almost DSLR style look, and that's even more evident once you stick a viewfinder on the front like that.
Yeah.
Any comments on the design?
I mean, obviously you've got to look at how big that screen is on the back of the camera. That kind of pushes obviously a lot of the design. Once we've started to manufacture cameras as well, we tend to stick with it because you can look at our price points on cameras, and you can see, how competitive they are. The way in which we can do that is obviously by keeping certain parts of manufacturing the same. So that's what it is.
I think it's a really important point, and one that I do want to hammer home for people at home is some. I don't want to call it being realistic or putting perspective on it, but you've just got to keep in mind the things going on behind the scenes. We've had a lot of feedback from customers on things like body style and on new features like autofocus and things like that, saying, well, why aren't they doing it? Everyone else is doing it. Go, well, sure. But think of the price point that these cameras sell for, and think of the other things that Blackmagic have been doing with their time and with their R&D budget. I mean, you've put motorized ND filters in this for the first time you've done on any cameras. You've got this new EVF, and because you've now got a good EVF for your Ursa Mini Pro and a good EVF for the Pockets, when actually EVFs are something that is quite lacking on a lot of others things. Not to mention you've got your own RAW codec, which is one of the best on the market with Blackmagic RAW, which would have taken a lot of R&D development. Plus, with the Ursa Mini Pro 12K, there's a whole new sensor design, which I imagine would have taken a lot of development to make. Yeah, so absolutely. If you think behind the scenes, everyone that is concerned about maybe something that might be missing from this camera compared to ones which cost twice the price of it, just think of the amount of things that Blackmagic have had going on behind the scenes and the amount of research that would have been put into one of these. They can't do everything and keep it at the same price point. And so I think they've struck a really nice balance of prioritizing the features that are most important to their customers, with prioritizing image quality being the biggest one. And then with this, taking this current ergonomics and tweaking it to make it more usable, I think is a really good and strong idea.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that recent release. We had the Pocket 6K Pro, the A10 Mini Extreme, and the Web Presenter HD. So I mean, exactly. 3 products that sit in different pools. So again, hopefully, kind of showing how much our R&D are working, and looking to progress things on customer feedback. I mean, all of those 3 products, I think, really show that we are driving for what customers are coming back to us with, niggles with, and trying to improve product lines in that respect.
So many.
Obviously, we can't do it all, but
customer feedback.
Yeah.
Because there's a bit of backup from Joe Motion there in the chat. Very good point, Carl. True words spoken. Thank you for the support, Joe. Okay, let's crack on with some questions. Marshall was saying, did Chris say that in full 6K there is 60p? I believe there's 60p on both of the 6K versions. I think it has been brought in now to both of the cameras. I don't think it's full. Yeah, it's in a 2.4 to 1 aspect ratio. Right. The full 6K readout is 50 frames. But yeah, in a 2.4 to 1, so 6144 2560. It's up to 60, yeah. I see. Lovely little message there from DK Media, by the way, before we crack on with more, saying, can we just pass this message to Blackmagic? Thank you, in capital letters, for all that you guys do for the community. Which is lovely to get a bit of support from customers like that. I mean, often you hear a lot of negativity going towards manufacturers, so that is really lovely to hear.
Yeah, sometimes you only hear the negative stuff because when it's positive, they just crack on.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, they just focus on using the tools.
Yeah, of course. No, I really appreciate that.
Okay, Damon is saying that he'd like to know when the Gen 5 update for the Pocket 4K will be released. Do you have any idea on timing for that? There's a firmware update coming for Gen 5 in camera on those models, right?
There is, yes. I don't have a definitive date right now. Obviously, it's the classic thing of kind of keep an eye on the website. It will be forthcoming, and that will be the first place you'll see of the drop. So yeah, it shouldn't be far off, but I don't have a definitive date right at this moment.
Okay, and Vilken Visions is saying, why is there no option to delete files inside the Pocket cameras? And he'd also quite like a preview of any stills that are taken in the camera, on the camera. By preview, I mean in thumbnail mode, it can play back stills, I believe. You can view stills that have been taken on there. I guess you mean a preview, as in after you take a still, it flashes up, I guess is what you're meaning there, Vilken. In which case, I would actually think it's the right thing to do to not have that, simply because the stills function on these cameras is very much secondary to the video, and it's most commonly used for reference stills within a video production. So sometimes you want to take those while it's actually recording, and the last thing you want is something flashing up on screen while you're recording with that. As for the no option to delete files, that's something you see on pretty much every professional video camera with professional quality media. Really, you should never be deleting files inside a camera unless you absolutely have to, even on the cameras that can do it. Media is surprisingly sensitive to issues that come from the way that the drive is being structured. And so video cameras, because they've got to keep up this very, very demanding sustained write speed, they want to create the minimal amount of problems possible on their cards. And so that's why it's always best to format the card before use in camera, so that it gets it nice and clean and good to go in the format that the camera wants, not the format that the computer wants. And you just want to make sure there's nothing going on that will interrupt that massive flow of data from the camera sensor onto the media card. And deleting things has the potential to trip cameras up with their pointing media in the right way, if you like, pointing those noughts and zeros in the right way. So I would absolutely advise people never to delete a file inside a camera unless you absolutely have to. Always take the media out, copy it across to a drive, and then put it back in the camera and completely reformat the drive. Or just have multiple cards so that you can swap them out and have a bunch of clean ones.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I think that's nearly it for the questions. Let me just do a quick little flip through. No, there's a bunch of people praising BlackMagic RAW. In particular, Mr. Heng says 12K BlackMagic RAW editing is insanely good on older computers, so thank you, which is fantastic. I mean, RAW 12K on older computers, that's incredible.
Yeah, and again, just that shows, that's what we've driven for with that codec. So it's fantastic to hear people working like that. It's exactly why it's there, what we did it for. So amazing.
And Daniel Peters is saying BlackMagic's always killing it for price and performance, and KME Film saying BlackMagic design is amazing and what they're able to accomplish. Absolutely. Cool. So I think that's a fantastic place to wrap it up. Thank you so much, Chris, for running us through and answering those questions. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. No, it's been great. I've really enjoyed it. And thanks for everyone tuning in. You're what drivers. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. I'm sorry once again for the technical issues halfway through this. We will do our best to iron it out so that if this goes up on demand, we will make sure that it can be watched all the way through. I just want to say before we finish, I mentioned it a couple of times throughout the stream, but the Pocket 6K Pro is in stock here at ProAV. So we can get these out to customers on next day delivery if you order them now. So if anyone's sitting there at home thinking of buying one of these, please do get in touch. Not all of the accessories are in stock right now, so the EVFs and the grips are things. So we've got a couple of EVFs by the looks of it, and we've got no grips left. The grips have all sold. So not the entire package is in stock, but the most important bits are the camera, and there is a couple of EVFs left. So if you're sitting at home waiting for one, please do get in touch. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you once again, Chris, for leading us through the presentation. And I will see you all very soon. Thank you.